What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the content section of the site. Today we are going to dig into sleep for the first time. We are going to touch on sort of some techniques today to improve your sleep quality. We are going to run through sort of a few of the different components that go into building good sleep quality. Touch on sort of the impacts of not accounting for those and controlling for optimizing those variables, and also some techniques as to how to improve them. Now, the first thing I want to touch on is that I think sleep is at the top of the hierarchy for adequate recovery. You know, if a client comes to me and says, look, I don't think I'm recovering well, the first thing that I'm going to say to them is, how are you sleeping? What's your sleep like? And I think that sort of everyone will be able to agree with me on that front, that sleep is at the top of the hierarchy. And that's why I'm addressing it first. Now we're going to dig mainly into the quality of sleep today, but I do want to touch on two things that I do think reign supreme in the hierarchy of importance. Number one is going to be regularity. So sort of keeping our sleep-wake rhythm regular and keeping it in accordance with the circadian clock. Now I'm going to come on to this later on. Quantity I also think is a little bit more important than quality, just because if you're sleeping 2 hours of great quality, you know, that's awesome, but are you going to satisfy the demands that you have in terms of sleep with 2 hours? No matter how good the quality is, you're not going to. And so for me, quantity is higher on the hierarchy of importance. How much quantity? Well, for me, this is going to depend athlete to athlete, individual to individual. Everyone's schedules are different, everyone's recovery demands are different, and so to put sort of a figure on it and say this is how long you should sleep, it's not really something that I can do. I must mention that if you're sort of sleeping any less than 7 hours and you're expecting to get stronger, you know, accumulate as much muscle mass as you can, lose body fat, you know, good luck to you. You will lose a bit, of course, because the energy balance will reign supreme. But in terms of optimization of those three goals, good luck to you if you're not sleeping. You're going to make life so much harder for yourself. Now, so to go back to the question of putting a figure on it, it's quite difficult to do, as I say, just because there are so many factors that play into your recovery demands. But for me, I would say sort of 7 to 9 hours is good. A minimum of 7.5, really, if we can. Main reason being that, you know, a rule of thumb, and of course this differs again individual to individual. I like every variable that I'm going to cover. But sort of the main rationale behind wanting 7.5 hours or more is just because we can accumulate 4 sleep cycles. The rule of thumb, as I say, 90 minutes for a sleep cycle, there or thereabouts. And so if we can run 7.5 hours plus time to get to sleep, you know, 7 hours 45, 8 hours, this is going to be sort of sufficient. I do always recommend, you know, controlling and allowing for time to fall asleep. For me, I like to sleep 9 hours, but I know I get into bed with 9 hours 20 until my alarm. 20 minutes for me to get to sleep. I actually tend to get to sleep in around about 10 to 12 minutes nowadays. I've actually been able to bring this right down. About a year ago, it was taking me sort of 20 to 25 minutes. I'm now sort of at 10 to 12 minutes, which is obviously a fantastic progression for me, which I'm really, really proud of. And so I get into bed now with sort of 9 hours 15, 9 hours 20, between the time that I go to bed and the time that I wake up. Now, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. The regularity of my sleep does differ. There's a good sort of hour window that I'll go to sleep and an hour window that I'll wake up. I generally go to bed between 12 and 1, and I'll wake up between, as I say, sort of 9 and half 10. And so for me, that's the time of the day that I like to operate. I work better. But as I say, the differentiation between those two maybe makes me a little hypocritical, considering I'm asking you to be as regular as you can. But that's the honesty of the situation. So today I'm going to dig into some quality. I'm going to go over a few of the different components that are going to go into optimizing that, and we'll go through each one now. Some of the negative implications that come within a sleep-deprived state are really quite scary. We can expect to see a drastic impairment in things like our cognitive function, our emotional reactivity to stresses. You know, our immune system is going to be weaker. We can probably expect to see, you know, a drastic amount more systemic inflammation. 65%. There was a 65% increase in mortality rate from that of individuals who were controlled with a 5-hour night's sleep, compared with that of individuals with an 8-hour sleep. And if that sort of doesn't say to you the importance of sleep, then I don't know what does. And so for me, knowing what we know from modern literature about the negative impacts of poor sleep, that for me is enough to want to control for mine and all clients' sleep environments to ensure that we are on the opposite end of that scale and we are seeing the many benefits that come from good sleep. Sleep isn't a credit system. It's not like the bank. You can't accumulate a debt and pay it off. And to apply some context to what that means, a lot of people in society nowadays, sleep deprive throughout the week, stay up late watching Netflix and then get up early for work for your 9 to 5, and then you lie in on the weekend and try and pay off that sleep debt. Sleep doesn't work like this. You can't pay off a debt. Similarly, you can't lie in at the weekend in order to almost build up a savings account that you then dig into throughout the week. It doesn't work like this. The essential truth of the matter is that if you have a poor night's sleep, that's it. You're done. You've screwed up. You got to move on. But one thing we can do here is just control for regularity. And again, this is sort of one of the examples of the importance of regularity here. I would rather see you sleep 7 hours every single night than sleep 6.5, 5, 8, 6, 7, and then at the end go 10, 9 on the weekend. I would rather you sleep 7 hours, but sleep the same 7 hours every single night from the same time you go to bed to the same time you wake up for a same duration, with the same environment in terms of things like temperature, brightness, noise, etc. Just because I think that regularity is more important, and as I said earlier in the video, is higher up on the hierarchy of importance. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover quite a lot of different components that go into improving sleep quality, such as light, temperature, sunlight exposure. I'm going to touch on the blue light blocking glasses as well. Digestion, noise, comfort. I'm also going to touch on quite a few different sort of bonus tips at the end, so things like alarms and snoozing, sleep tablets and supplementation and stuff like that, stuff that's commonly asked questions and stuff that I guarantee if I post this video, that's what I'll see in the comments. I'm going to try and answer as many of the predicted FAQs that will come post video. So yeah, let's dig into that right now. Temperature is one that's commonly overlooked, like many of the components that go into controlling for a better sleep environment. Now, we need to drop 3 degrees Fahrenheit in order to initiate sleep. And so that's probably blown you away already. It blew me away when I learned this from Matthew Walker podcast a couple of years ago on the Joe Rogan podcast, which, by the way, I think is a fantastic watch. I'll have it up on the screen like a little preview from YouTube. I think it's awesome. I really would go away and have a watch in your spare time. So we need to drop 3 degrees Fahrenheit in order to initiate sleep. Now, you can do this however you please, but bear in mind that it is referring to core body temperature. And so actually, you may do this in a way that may sound counterintuitive, and I'll come on to that with a hot bath in a second. Now, I like to do this through going on a walk, mainly because for me and my job and what I do, that works perfectly for me. Again, tying into regularity, I walk for 30 minutes upon wake and 30 minutes pre-bed every single day. And so that is almost a cue, like if I get up and go out of sunlight, right, we're awake now, then a walk pre-bed in the darkness, it's going to obviously secrete melatonin, it's going to drop core body temperature, it's signaling it's time for bed. And so from a regularity perspective, I think that's fantastic. And that just ties in well for me, considering that I have to go on my WhatsApp it's part of my job as a coach. And so for me to go on a walk in the morning for sort of 30, 45 minutes, the task for that walk, not only contributing towards a step goal, but the task for that walk is to clear my WhatsApp. The task for that walk pre-bed, again, I don't get home until my WhatsApp's cleared. And so for me, I've got sort of extrinsic factors playing into the rationale for that walk. But I think it's fantastic for regulating sleep. A better alternative from a temperature perspective would be a hot bath. Now, as I say, this may sound counterintuitive because you're trying to drop core body temperature, so having a hot bath may sound weird. But if you imagine that when you get into a bath, your skin goes really red. Now, what's happening here is that the heat is rising to the surface of your skin. And so essentially what happens is as soon as you get out, you'll notice that all of a sudden you come from being sort of really warm in the bath and all of a sudden you're really chilly when you get out. Essentially what's happening there is that the heat has evaporated from your skin and core body temperature therefore has plummeted. And so this is a fantastic tool that we can use to manipulate sleep to aid sleep quality. And that's one that I think we should utilize and not overlook, which commonly is overlooked. Light is one that maybe again I'm being hypocritical for here. I haven't got any blue light blocking glasses on and I've got quite a lot of light, but for me I'm an hour away from bedtime. I'm going to go on a walk, so leave me alone. But controlling for light again is an incredibly important component that goes into aiding a good night's sleep. And so I would like to see you dimming the lights around your house, a couple hours before bed. Define an hour before bed, bringing the lamps down, turning the lamps off, maybe starting to pull away from the devices. We know that blue light basically suppresses your pineal gland from secreting melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. And so this is exactly the opposite of what we want in a stage where we're trying to promote sleep. And so a perfect example here, as I referred to earlier, would be blue light blocking glasses. You can pick these up from Amazon. Essentially, they just reduce the amount of blue light that your eyeball will absorb. Therefore, that's going to allow for that secretion of melatonin. And so this is, again, a fantastic tool that we can use. In modern society, there's a bunch of tools available to us, such as things like the night shift on your phone. If you're watching this on your phone, you can swipe up or swipe down onto the control center in there. I'm pretty sure there's like a button that essentially brings the screen more to an orange light, again, reducing the blue light. And basically this is going to help with, again, the secretion of melatonin. Marginally, it's still a device. I think that the blue light blocking glasses are far better. And for a couple quid on Amazon, I really would sort of recommend jumping on and just picking some up and just assessing how they help, if they help. Next up, digestion. Another one that people probably don't even know contributes to sleep quality and falling asleep. When we sort of get into the evening time, the night time, naturally our digestion is impaired. Gastric acid production is reduced, and therefore your ability to digest food is impeded. And so we need to consider this when sort of looking at meal timing compared to bed timing, and having a large influx or a humongous meal prior to going to sleep really is going to disrupt sleep. Are you going to absorb that food? Not really. Is it going to affect sleep negatively? Yes. So sort of that isn't really a sort of a productive plan, having a big meal pre-bed. Again, in something like a fat loss phase or a gaining phase, the energy balance is going to reign supreme, and so sometimes we have to do this. But if we can, then I'd like to see you bringing that larger meal forward. If you need a protein serving pre-bed in order to maximize your muscle protein synthesis, then have a shake, or there's certain meals you can incorporate. I personally, with me and my clients, really like a Greek yogurt, dark chocolate and whey meal. I could go into the benefits of sort of the casein and the polyphenol content and magnesium within the dark chocolate, etc. But if you're interested in learning about why I place this meal in the time that I do, then you can access this in my nutrition ebook, which is on the screen. If you're watching this on the website, come out of the content page, tap on the shop, and you can access it there and have a read. If you're watching this on YouTube, then there is a link in the description to my website. Tap on that, head to the shop and have a look at the ebook, and you can find all of the relevant information in there. The penultimate main factor that I'm going to touch on is sunlight exposure. Now, sunlight exposure, again, running theme here, is commonly overlooked. People don't realise that it contributes as strongly as it does in terms of not only promoting a quicker time to get to sleep, but also sleep quality. And this comes down to the regularity thing again. Getting up and going out for a walk is going to promote that sleep-wake rhythm. Going for a walk pre-bed, on the flip side, is also going to promote that sleep-wake rhythm and keep it in accordance to the circadian clock. And so sunlight exposure is something that is fantastic. And upon wake, I would like to see you get up and go out. Prior to going on your phone or checking your emails, whatever it is, get up, go for a walk. Or if you don't want to go for a walk, get up, go barefoot, stand in the garden, do some grounding, and some more benefits there. It's the sunlight exposure upon wake that's really going to promote an environment for getting good sleep at night from a regularity perspective. Final thing that I'm going to touch on in detail, comfort. Now, comfort is something that will contribute, again, more than you may imagine. There's three factors that sort of go into this really, or three factors that I can think of now. So bedding, a mattress, and clothing. We should control for these three things. Bedding a mattress from a perspective of being comfortable within the environment that you sleep in. You don't want to get into bed, be uncomfortable, and not be able to relax in terms of promoting that parasympathetic system and you're sort of drifting off into sleep. You want to be in an environment that you're comfortable in. It's also, when speaking about bed, important, and again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, from a regulation perspective or a regularity perspective, you should be treating bed as what it is, bed. Lounging around in bed throughout the day, which especially in younger individuals is very common, just gives the signal that bed isn't for sleep. For me, I sit at my desk all day. When I go to bed, and maybe when the girlfriend comes around and I watch a film, there's certain times that I'm a bit hypocritical here, but when I go to bed, at least for 95% of the time, I know that is to sleep. So my mind registers, okay, I'm getting into bed, I'm going to sleep now. Whereas if you're in bed all day, there's no differentiation between I'm awake on my phone and I'm going to sleep. And so again, from the melatonin perspective, just from the signalling of I'm going to sleep, your brain doesn't know. So to provide a clear cut, I'm sleeping or I'm awake, is going to help in terms of getting you to sleep faster and aiding better quality. The other thing is clothing. And it's just, again, from being comfortable. The literature seems to support that the less you wear, the better, although this is dependent on you. And you will probably be able to assess over time, if you properly control for it, what you are better suited to when it comes to clothing for bed. For me, like most boys, I like to sleep in just pants. But some guys will like to sleep in pyjamas, some guys will like to sleep with nothing. And so realistically, that's one that you should go away, play about with, see what you prefer. But the literature seems to support that the less you wear, within reason, is better. A few quick points that I'm just going to try and go over to cover some of the frequently asked questions that I'm expecting to see in the comments below. Noise, obviously the quieter the better. In how do I track my sleep? The app Sleep Cycle. You can get this on the App Store. I'm confident you'll probably be able to get it on Android. Excuse me. And sort of any free software or paid software, it doesn't matter, that allows you to track the time that you're actually asleep compared with that of the time that you're in bed. Quality or efficiency, just a scoring, sort of usually expressed as a percentage. Any snoring data, a graph to represent sleep cycles. And sort of maybe if you've got an advanced software, then you could look at things like how that compares to your expenditure. And this is really useful for analysing your sleep. Alarms. An alarm is a cardiovascular stressor. So just bear this in mind. Tapping the snooze button repeatedly, you're just causing repeated stress to your cardiovascular system. The alarm promotes a sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. And so we want to minimize this, especially in an environment of sleep. So although I think that an alarm upon wake and potentially to signal a time to go to sleep is fine, don't be pressing the snooze button on repeat. I understand the temptation here, especially if you get up early. I don't. But I really wouldn't recommend snoozing the alarm. Sleep tablets. This is probably something I'm going to get asked. So I would avoid these at all costs where possible. In an event where you're traveling and the goal would be to minimize the implications of jet lag, I'd maybe argue that we could use melatonin. It's going to help with sort of resetting circadian rhythm. It's going to minimize, as I say, implications of jet lag. And so there's potentially a rationale for melatonin there. But as a rule, I would stay well clear of sleep tablets. They're just not they're just poison, realistically. Supplementation, which sort of ties into that. I've done a whole video on supplementation. In fact, it was the one prior to this one. So go and check that out. The link will be in the description on YouTube. If you're on the website, just swipe down one. And that's sort of going to cover it for sleep quality. There's certainly a lot of variables, or I should say contributing factors, that I haven't touched on here. I've tried to bring this into, as I do for every video, sort of a somewhat relatively easily digestible, not too boring approach to sleep quality. So hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you're able to take something away from this video. As usual, my Instagram is on the screen. If you have any questions, please let me know. Equally, if you have any suggestions for videos that you'd like to see covered within this series, then please do let me know. That is pretty much going to cover it. Like the video if you're on YouTube. We'll see you in the next video.